Faceoff is there for you. Well, if you just joined us, you watch on the news at 10. Broadcasting on Channels Television live from Lake. We now bring you some of the pictures you sent to our eyewitness portal. First is this one from Kaduna in Kaduna State, showing a dump site in a residential area. Our eyewitness reporter wants sanitation officials to look into this. Next is this one from Benin City in Edo State, showing a bad road. Our eyewitness says this was caused by flooding. Residents are calling on the government to help them fix the road. And despite several warnings from road safety officials, a number of people are still endangering their lives, like this man shown in this picture. Our eyewitness reporter says he was seen in Bank Anthony in Lagos State, hanging on the booth of a commercial bus. He wants men of the Federal Road Safety Corps to pay more attention to road users. Well, thank you for sending in those pictures and urge you to keep them coming. A serving Army corporal is among 8 suspects arrested by the police Special Intelligence Response Team Force Headquarters, Abuja, over arms supplies to robbers. The corporal serving in Borno State and currently detained by military intelligence and another group based in Lagos were alleged to have been the major arms suppliers to the robbers who laid siege to banks in Lagos and Ogun States recently. Some of the suspects narrated to Channels Television how they sold arms to the robbers on the creeks of Lagos.
The arrest of these 5 men, according to the police, comes as a big relief. The suspects speak on how they delivered 7 rifles to armed bandits in Lagos.
They were, what do they call it, soldier clothes. The dress are like soldier. We carried 2 guns for that place. So and the second time again, we carry 2. We sell land for them for 224 per one.
46-year-old Monsuru Adisa also explains how he used these locally fabricated compartments of his vehicle to convey guns for delivery.
The first day we go Ikorodu, we follow go together. So later, he call us again, say he need another goods. So far we don't know this man. We be say he don't take we dey deal with him now. So when I tell my guy say, nah, Mike need him, make I try manage start my auto, carry and go give him.
The Special Intelligence Response Team of the Inspector General of Police swung into action, following these spades of bank robberies through the waterways in Lagos, southwest Nigeria. First, the arrest of 4 leading members of the notorious gang at a wedding in Sapele, Delta State in November 2015. These led to the discovery of how their arms were supplied. As it stands, major gang leaders have been arrested. A serving army corporal has been taken into custody. It's now important for the police to harmonize their investigations and file proper charges.
Pretty nice one there for the Nigerian police. We'll now take you to our Abuja studios where Linda Akigbe is standing by to give us more on the news at 10.
Hello, Sulaiman, and welcome to Abuja. The candidates of the All Progressives Grand Alliance, APGA, Chief Victor Umeh, and the People's Democratic Party, PDP, Mrs. Uche Ekwunife, in the Anambra Central Senatorial District, have been trading words ahead of the fresh election ordered by the appeal court. Mr. Umeh insists that Mrs. Ekwunife has been disqualified from running in the race as there is no window for primaries again. In a swift reaction, Mrs. Ekwunife advised Mr. Umeh to desist from illusions and seek better interpretation of the judgment.
We did not conduct any valid primary in Anambra State that produced their candidate, their purported candidate on the Uche Ekwunife. If the Court of Appeal agreed with us that she was not validly nominated and legitimately too, and that she was not qualified to stand for the election ab initio. The ordinary meaning is that she was not a candidate in the election. And you have to know that in this circumstance, only candidates that were qualified at the time of the election will go for the repeat election. that will come up within 90 days as ordered by the Court of Appeal.
Appeal Court says in the ruled order that we should go back for fresh election. If you look at the order, which I have here, you can't see anywhere signed by A.D. Yahaya, the presiding judge of the Appeal Court. You can't see anywhere that is stated that I'm disqualified or my party is disqualified. That is the imagination of Chief Victor Umeh. I am not disqualified. My party is not disqualified. I am in for election. I am ready for the primaries that PDP put for 9th of January. I win the primaries and I will floor Victor Umeh again and again.
Now, following the 2015 general elections and the victory of the opposition party at the polls, Nigerians looked forward to the inauguration of the 8th National Assembly. But the first steps of the National Assembly was marred in controversy as a battle for leadership positions took center stage. As the year 2015 rounds up, our correspondent Larry Lasisi takes a look at the highs and lows in the National Assembly.
This is what some people may remember of the 8th National Assembly in 2016. The different dimensions the tussle for the leadership positions in the National Assembly took. The emergence of Senator Bukola Saraki and Senator Ike Ekweremadu as Senate President and Deputy Senate President was a bitter pill for the All Progressive Congress. In the House of Representatives, some members were also displeased with the election of Yakubu Dogara and Lasun Yusuf as Speaker and Deputy Speaker. To further worsen the situation, the Senate President was dragged to the Code of Conduct Tribunal on charges of false declaration of his assets.
I'm here, strongly believe I'm here, because I am the Senate President. I don't believe that I'll be here if otherwise.
The contentions in the National Assembly continued even when the list of chairmen of the standing committees were announced.
Mr. President, yes, I am contesting. I will not. Who shall do
What really happened during the first few months of this administration as regards the National Assembly was not a good news, a palatable news at all. But give or take, now that we have all resolved and believe that yes, Nigeria is greater than each and every one of us or any individual, we have agreed to set aside all these differences. For issues that are still pending in court, we have allowed the judicial process to take its course and take its decision in that regard.
It is very difficult to lead, even to lead one person, talk less of leading 360 members across the nation with different characters, different mindset, but we are all coming together now, putting forward what is important, Nigeria.
But the National Assembly did settle down to work with a lot of motions and bills being introduced and considered in both chambers. During this year, the House of Representatives also set a record as 130 bills passed first reading in one day. The National Assembly had to also contend with reactions that greeted the introduction of the frivolous petitions bill, which some Nigerians say is designed to gag the media. Nigerians would also not forget in a hurry the drama that went with the ministerial screening, especially the nomination of former Rivers State Governor Rotimi Amechi.
I have never taken bribe in my life.
The National Assembly during the year also passed the 2015 Supplementary Appropriation Bill, considered the 2016 to 2018 Medium-Term Expenditure Framework, and received the 2016 Appropriation Bill. In a box.
The National Assembly, specifically the House of Representatives, have done very, very well. They've been there carrying out those constitutional responsibilities as spelled out in Section 4 sub 2 of the Constitution. which is making good laws for the good governance of this country. And I see some level of cooperation coming from the executive also. So give or take, I think, we may have the era of disagreeing to agree.
A lot has been said of what Nigerians should expect of the National Assembly in 2016, but will they help to bring about the change Nigerians are expecting? This is a question Nigerians will have a chance to answer in 2016. Lanre Lasese, Channels Television News.
Now joining me on the news at 10 to discuss the major highlights of a National Assembly in 2015 is a civil rights activist, Mr. Samson Itodo. Mr. Itodo, you're welcome to the news at 10.
Thank you very much.
So you just saw the report by our correspondent Lanre Lasese looking at the, the major happenings of a National Assembly in 2015. How would you assess the 8th National Assembly in 2015, maybe in terms of lawmaking, oversight?
I think some would tell you it's actually too early to gauge or assess the performance of the 8th Assembly because this is just 6 months post the inauguration. You recall that the 8th Assembly was inaugurated on the 9th of June, and after that they were plagued by different controversies. First, this was the issue of leadership, the leadership crisis that bedeviled the National Assembly, and then, of course, the issue of the pay cut. The pay cut debate actually came up, and that came with its own drama. But positively, we've seen a National Assembly that has articulated its priorities in the legislative agenda. For the very first time, the Senate has adopted an agenda, but for the House, this is the second time because the legislative agenda started with the 7th Assembly. So it's actually a positive one for the Assembly. And of course, the ministerial screening that was conducted by the Senate, we are somewhat seeing a leadership. At least they've actually settled the whole scope with the leadership. And of course, the whole debate about the committee chairmanship, who was going to take what and where it was actually going to go. And all this posed a lot of distraction for the National Assembly. But there are negatives to this. And the country was actually left to suffer because you've seen a caliber of legislature that to a large extent portends or presents its own personal interest over and above the collective interest of the Nigerian people.
Yeah, talking of the leadership crisis.
Talking of the leadership crisis. Because if you look at the number of recess that the 8th Assembly had to undertake over the last 6 months, you ask yourself, what happened to the fierce urgency of the now? We are a country that is faced with a lot of economic challenges, where we're faced with a lot of security challenges, and things are so bad. So you expect that our lawmakers will deprive themselves of that luxury of undergoing or undertaking a recess and focus on the business of running the affairs of state or ensuring that there are good laws for our country. But you cannot assess the performance of the National Assembly without looking at its core functions, the oversight, legislation, and even representation. I'll just look at the issue of oversight. If you look at from the inauguration of this current administration, the ministries were actually run by permanent secretaries, and it didn't in any way stop the performance or the work of the ministries, but the National Assembly couldn't perform its oversight. And there are 4 key things that happen when you perform oversight. 1, you ensure executive accountability. 2, financial accountability. Thirdly, you also ensure transparency and openness, and you uphold the rule of law. And all through this period that we didn't have these committees to oversight these government agencies, all this was not in any way
and we've
guaranteed.
seen the Senate President come out to say that the National Assembly actually did not fare well in its oversight function as regards this issue of the National Security Advisor.
It's just a clear testament that we have a National Assembly that has not justified its pay. And that's why Nigerians have constantly asked the question about openness and the accountability of the National Assembly. Because who oversights the National Assembly? Citizens have been asking a lot of questions. And the National Assembly is one institution of government or one arm of government that does not respond to freedom of information requests. If you look at the legislative agenda of the National Assembly, the agenda is predicated of the principles of accountability, openness, and proactive communication with the citizens of Nigeria. But if you assess the National Assembly so far, they've not been open to the Nigerian people on their earnings, and even their budget. Even a breakdown of their budget is such a hassle to actually get. And how do you promote accountability? How do you enhance transparency if you, who is the institution that Nigerians actually look forward to because we voted them into power to represent us and perform oversight over the executive, are not in themselves transparent?
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Itodo, for joining us on News at 10.
All right, Linda, I guess you're done.
That's all from Abuja. Back to you, Sulaiman.
Many thanks. When the News at 10 returns, Governor Oton orders arrest of bailout fund thieves. Do join us again.